Nemophila ask, rock and roll is... And they kind of answered the question. That was some pretty damn good rock and roll. Let's break down why. We got a lot to unpack. Hi there and welcome back to Japan, where we continue our track-by-track listen through to Seize the Fate, the new album by Nemophila, with the song Rock and Roll Is. I have to raise my voice at the end because it's a question. Rock and Roll Is... yeah, look, I'll be honest, so far this album has been much better than I could have expected. We're always honest on this channel, as subjective as music is. That's why I feel like it's always good to give an honest opinion and explain why. And I've had different opinions on different Nemophila songs from when they began, and I wasn't a huge fan. They've just seemed to get better and better, and this album so far has been really interesting for one of the reasons. It's got that thing I love from an album. It's got variation, it's got a lot of different ideas, and whereas the last track, Back Into the Wild, certainly for me was sort of reminiscing to those sounds of that kind of arena hair metal of like the 80s, I'd say. Rock and Roll is taking us back to somewhere more in the 70s, I feel. This is a song that is once again kind of nostalgic, but it's nice as an album track that it just gives character, that all of the songs have colour, that they have a different feeling. So let's break down what rock and roll is. It starts off with a nice sort of guitar riff that's very simple, very understated, just enough to sort of get you moving along. It's almost more rhythm than it is riff, and I like that. It's again, it feels very reminiscent of the sort of stripped back rock and roll style that it's trying to emulate very much, I'd say, personally, from the 70s. It's got a little bit of distortion on guitar, but it's not that full-on distortion that we're used to hearing from Nemophila. Usually it's kind of just a little bit of a dirty, grungy sounding guitar. It starts off in a way that definitely plays into what the title says. And this song has those sort of big thumping beats. It has those nice clear vocal melodies. It's a rock and roll song. But what makes this interesting is that they add a little bit of character in various places. We get changes to the speed, some half-time bits, some double-time bits. I liked how at the end of the second verse it breaks down to a bit where everything spaces out and we get sort of the guitar becomes a little bit more spaced and echoey and the vocals start layering, and it kind of almost reminds you of a sort of Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds sort of vibe before it comes back around into the chorus. There's just little nice ideas in this song that stop it just becoming a retreading of ground. It is, yes, at heart something of a nostalgic tribute to that sound, that sort of period in music, and therefore it is using a lot of ideas we've heard before, but it's like a nice collage of sort of those sounds rather than just being an attempt to capitalize on them by doing the most cookie cutter variety of rock and roll song. It feels like something that has love for what it's referencing, and uses that to make something nice and yet nostalgic at the same time. That said, ultimately, this is a quality item. It is sort of constructed from, like I say, a sort of knowing love of the sound that they're going for, and from the usual good musicianship and beautiful singing voice that they've got to work with. However, it more works as an album track. Nothing about it particularly stands out as being overly catchy, or it's got enough to stop it becoming too predictable, and yet it hasn't got quite enough to make it stand out as being timeless and really being something where you go, that's a highlight of the album. For me, this is the quintessential example of a good album track. It sets itself apart from the songs around it by having a very different style. Excuse the pun, I know that's the next song, but at the same time it does that whilst having enough fresh ideas of its own to keep you listening through. So I enjoyed this song. I thought it was a nice touch, but it is one that I would listen to in the context of the album. I don't suspect I'd listen to it outside of that context. So to conclude this, as I say, great album track. Now the next track is Style. If you want to see the review of that, we've already done it, because I did a review of that when it first came out. And it's rather interesting, because whereas Back Into the Wild kind of gave me an 80s vibe, Rock and Roll Is gives me a 70s vibe, Style certainly gave me more of a 90s vibe, I must say. So it's almost like they're doing a little bit of bouncing around, looking at different eras to sort of fill out this mid-section of the album, which is interesting. Still, we're going to be skipping over Style to get to the next track that I'm going to be posting. So like I say, you can go check out the Style review now, but the next one I'll be posting won't be that. We'll be skipping over that, obviously, to check out more of the non-singles that we haven't already covered. So thank you so much for checking this out with me. Leave your comments as always in the comment section below. Feel free to say what you think, like and subscribe to stick around and see more of these reviews until I hopefully see you very soon in Japan for the next one of these. For now, ciao ciao.